On behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight, welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
I have a very special, everyone's special to me, but this is a very, very special guest today because I take credit for his success. I think I met him as a master sergeant or maybe a tech sergeant, but at least a master sergeant. And I always say, if you hang with the chief, that would be me, you get promoted. So Dan Stellabotte is now a retired chief. Again, he hung out with me for a little bit, got promoted, eventually retired, and not too long ago. But like I say, I take all the credit of his success. If he fails, I don't even know him. But anyway, good to see you, Dan.
You too. Great to see you as well, Chief, and thanks for having me on the show today.
Well, you have a lot of experience, different experience than a lot of people because you're a medic by trade, right? And I know when we met, you were doing you were first term airman or
career assistance advisor, had FTAC under it as well, and you are correct. I was a kind of a young in the sense of rank wise as a young master sergeant when we met.
Yeah. Okay. So and I think I've told you that medics are different. They're special. I mean, you guys have like your own language and stuff, labs are dogs, Dan. You didn't know that, but labs are dogs. So every time I go up there and they say we got to do labs, I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna get to play with the puppies. It never happens, man. They like suck blood out of my veins. What? Anyway, good to have you. And how long did you serve altogether? And you retired what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I did. You're right. I retired July 1st, 2023, for a total of 28 years in service.
Okay. And you got to do a lot of different things. I know you, I think did you go to overseas a couple of times? I think you did.
As a young airman, I was over in Panama when we still had some installations there in Central America. And then before coming back here to Colorado, we were at Ramstein, Germany, of course, which was a great assignment.
Were you in the med group there?
I was at the demo clinic and then also part of the time over there helping out with the group as well as their SEL2.
Yeah, that's a tough mission out there, I think, Dan, because we were there the last 6 years of my active duty service, and there was just no way we had enough people to take care of everybody that was there, And of course, Landstuhl was down. Is it Landstuhl, the hospital? Yeah, the Army hospital took up most of the slack because that's a huge place. But still, it was difficult. But although I figured out how to get an appointment because it took like 2 months to get an appointment. But I just walk into the hospital and I go, and man, it's like everyone showed up. Are you okay? No, yeah. I got the sniffles, man, and I need some Motrin. Shut up, Chief. Eventually, they just.
That always worked.
Well, it worked twice. The third time they said, "Oh, let him die." So
Nice.
So anyway, again, thanks for being on the show, and I don't have to tell you, I'm very proud of you, man, because you did some great stuff. You never know the folks that you see and you think this is a chief. And you never really know that it happens, unless they come back and, we've been connecting since then and all the time, I guess. But I'm proud that you did what you did. And not only that you got promoted, but you took care of a lot of people. I know that because I've heard it from a lot of folks. So thank you for having done that. And I know you're doing it. You're still doing it because you're a man of character. And I don't think we could take that away from you. So
thank you.
Anyway, since we were talking about, and we had lunch the other day, we were talking about chiefs. You're like in the middle generation, I'll call it. I know you're going to say I'm lying, but I'm not. I'm older than you. Stop. Don't argue. Don't argue. So my generation was a bit different than yours as I grew up into becoming a chief. And then your experience is really somewhat different than what the new chiefs are going through. So, and I always say this, Dan, you can't, we say that we learn more from our mistakes. I think that's crap. You learn from others as well. You're not big enough to make all the mistakes to be good enough to do what you do. So learn from others' mistakes, and I think as a chief, I think there's a value in that, and I hope that in our conversations throughout the years that you learn from that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told you and Mac, don't do that. Don't do
Yes.
that, because if you do, you're going to screw up and your career's gone. And I know not necessarily because I did it, but because another chief told me. So anyways, I think there's value in learning from the older chiefs. Now, I'm telling you now, I'm not older. I'm bolder.
Yes,
so,
you
so,
are, and I
so,
appreciate that.
so don't ask me a question you don't want the answer to, because I will tell you the truth. Anyway, and being out, having retired just fairly recently, especially in the last years, Dan, what do you think that makes an effective leader chief in the Air Force and even in Space Force? Because a lot of Air Force folks have moved on to Space Force.
You know, I I'm actually going to go back in time and then I'm going to tie it in because when you said about other people's mistakes, I wanted to talk about that real quick because when I was a young senior airman at the medical group in I think it was Little Rock or Barksdale, I forgot which base. But long story short, the group chief at the time had sent out an email, hey, if you want to learn and kind of get on the path of making and achieving the rank of chief, bring your superintendent, as they called them back then, versus senior enlisted leader. Bring your EPRs. We'll sit down. We'll go over things. So, of course, I was like, well, when I came in as a young airman basic, I knew that was the goal. And of course, it changes over time. It's a shared goal. I think you and I both know that. But so I sat down with him, and the chief, gave me some remarks on my EPRs, and he said, "Man, you got to be studying those books every single day, your CDCs, the SKT at the time." And I said, okay. And so I took that to charge, and he said, I'm going to follow up with you. I said, okay. And so I would carry those books around with me. And long and behold, one day I had them with me, and I'm walking right past the chief, and I'm like, hey, chief. And he just kind of looks at me. He's like, hey, keeps on walking. So I thought, I'm wondering if he's going to keep to his word. And he didn't. He never followed up with me. We never spoke about it again. And so what I took from that was if I ever get to that goal of making Chief Master Sergeant, I will never be like that. So he taught me a valuable lesson. If I'm in that same seat, I'm going to do things differently and make sure that if I say something, I'm going to follow up with my people. So that was kind of the backstory there. But what makes a good chief or a good leader, for me, it was really approachability, being approachable, right? People felt comfortable coming to me, but also connecting with them. And that was kind of my big thing is connecting with people. It's very interesting that in within 30 seconds to a minute, you can find a connection with somebody, but it's all about starting that conversation and being open to kind of hearing what their story is.
And listening to it, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yes.
and I know we've had these conversations before, but one of my pet peeves, Dan, is when someone is just hearing you and maybe not even hearing you, that they're not listening.
Right.
And especially the physical part. I have one of them just passed away a few years ago, and another person who are two of
Sorry.
my favorite friends that I love them. I still do, but they would just never pay attention to what I was saying. They were always looking around, and we tended to get together at places where we were eating, restaurants or whatever. So they'd be, distracted by this and by that. And I'm like, each time I'd think, are you listening to me at all? Because, I don't think you are. So,
Right.
so listening, and we used to teach this stuff together,
Of
is a
course.
lot more important than just hearing. Hearing is a physical thing. Listening it takes a focus on the words, the message, and all that kind of stuff. And you're right now taking it back to the medical folks. Man, you guys got to know how to listen. That's critical, because
Of
otherwise
course.
you're not going to get. And I often say that you have to listen with your eyes and your heart,
Hmm.
because words don't always. well, I'll tell you a story. At Ramstein, I remember a young lady coming in to the Family Support Center where I was a deputy director, looking for a fig. If I find it guide, if you remember those magazines
Oh,
that we used to have,
of course.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, we published them, and I owned them. I had, they came to me, and then I'd distribute them, and they were like gold. You could sell those things for a few francs or a few Deutschmarks back in the day. But anyway, this young lady comes in ostensibly looking for one of those.
Hmm.
And luckily, we had trained our people to listen, like I just said, with
Of
your eyes
course.
and your heart. And she stuck around and stuck around. And finally, I can't think of her name, our administrative person, whatever, I used to say
Sure.
secretary, and we can't do that anymore. But anyway, she calls me up and says, Chief, you need to come down here. So I go down there and I talk to her. And she says, I don't think this lady wants a fig, and she's not leaving. Something's up. So I got to talking to her, and luckily I had practiced some of my, because I'm a 7 habits kind of guy. So I had practiced
Right.
my listening, and she was on her way to commit suicide, man.
Oh,
And you know that people who are about to do that or interest or
yes.
contemplating it, they really want help. Most of them don't want to die, but they
Right.
don't know how to seek help. And this young lady that's how her way of seeking help. I go to the family support center, maybe someone will help me. And we did. We took her next door. You remember, maybe not when you were there, but mental health was right next door to family support.
I
And
do.
yeah,
Yes.
so we took her next door, and I saw her months later, and she was doing well. And I thought, that's how you listen, not just for the words, because everything we said was yes, positive and all that kind of stuff, but it was something deeper than that. So,
Right.
um, yeah, but I think that's where it starts. And living up to your word, Dan. I feel so sorry, man, that any chief would not. Because we expect chiefs to do that. You tell
Of
me
course.
something, I tell you something. We're going to be together at this time. We're going to be together at this time. I tell you, I got your back. I got your back. Now, if not, then all of us suffer, right? Because it's not, I think when we speak to someone, I'm not speaking as Chief Bob Hoskins. I'm speaking as a Chief Master Sergeant for all of the Air Force, all of the Space Force.
Correct.
We all
Oh
take
yeah.
care of each other. We all make sure that we take care of our airmen or our guardians or whatever. So,
Of
uh,
course. Yes.
did now that was a non. Remember, we used to say non-example. That's a dumb word. But did you have some good examples though of some chiefs that did do what you said you hoped?
I absolutely, and you're probably not going to like this, but bold goes both ways too. But I'll tell you, when I was that young master sergeant, I really hadn't really, I wasn't seeking out mentorship. In my mind, I was a very shy person, especially as a young airman. Even though I went to see that chief, but still, I was not who I am today. And then I realized, man, I can't do this alone. There's no way I'm going to achieve my goals. There's no way I'm going to be able to take care of my people, my family, unless I start to seek out mentorship. And why am I saying you probably not going to like this? Because you are one of the first chiefs and just mentors that took me under your wing and started to open different doors for me and really just enlightened me. And I realized, wow, I really enjoy this. And I'm learning so much more from a chief that's been in the job and has a lot of experience. And that's where I saw a shift in who I was. And I realized, wow, my passion really is for people. But to get into that and tap into that, I couldn't do by myself. So I had you as one of my first mentors, and then it kind of snowballed from there. So I have to say thank you because I've never told you that, but that's a great example of what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, and I know you're attempting to make me cry, and it ain't going to happen, okay? Because chiefs do not cry. Sometimes
Correct.
our eyeball sweat, but nah, that ain't happening. Well, and I, again, like I said a while ago, Dad, I'm honored to have known you and to been part of your success. But that's
Thank
what it takes, you know. And I hear from young chiefs,
you. Mhm.
yeah, baby chiefs, who say, "But man, I don't get the mentoring I wish I had." Uh, some of them, in fact, I started this podcast because I saw or heard from a lot of chiefs that were
Mhm.
saying, I'm a chief, I don't know what I'm doing. Which, first of all, I'd say, go buy my book. And because,
There you go.
you got to eat somehow. And so anyway, that was, and again, the podcast, as you know, is based on the book. But we need to mentor. And when I was growing up, I don't know if you went through the same thing. I was taught to that my job, and as a senior NCO in particular, was to work myself out of a job. My
Yes.
job was to teach whoever was behind me everything that I know so that I can learn from the person ahead of me. And
Hmm.
it's a continuous cycle, and I don't know that we don't do it. I've heard some people say, no, we still do it. And I've heard a lot of people say we don't do it. But
Right.
regardless, I think that's a critical thing that a chief needs to do. Help that person become, and a lot of times I've heard people, and I hate to sound egotistic, but sometimes people say, hey, I always wanted to be you. And I always tell them, no, you can't. One, you can't be me. Number two, be better. Because
Right.
if you take what I learned or what I taught you, you can be even better than me. And that I call air power, HEIR power. You know that. But
Most definitely.
but
Yes.
but I think that's it, man. Teach that person to be better. That's what you want for your kids. I know that.
Exactly. I say that all the time to them. And I have to inject here because I, there's a mix between humility and having too much humility, and that was one of my struggles coming up too. And I realized like I had to be more in the middle, right? Don't be arrogant, but don't have too much humility to where you're just holding back. And I'm actually attending a promotion ceremony tomorrow for Chief Select Jeremy Harris, who's coming up through the dental field. And he came to me when I was still the chief at the Med Group at Peterson, and he invited me to come to his ceremony tomorrow. And so I feel exactly what you're saying is that, he did the work leading up to it, but I also made sure he stayed on the right path and provided opportunities. And of course, I knew he would succeed and do great things and achieve the rank of chief and so it's an honor to even get the invite, but it kind of tells you that that relationship has blossomed over the years, and it'll be a great day to see one of your proteges like you have with many um, put on that rank.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like it. And so at least you remember that chiefs don't cry. Sometimes our eyeballs sweat because that may happen to you tomorrow. Okay, when that chief puts on that, we sew it on or whatever we do, we used to smack it on, but nowadays I don't know if we do it anymore.
Yeah,
But
you have to
nonetheless,
tap it now.
yeah, when that happens, there may be some sweating, but
Of course.
and even for those who are listening who are not chiefs, but are either aspiring or they are leaders, there's
Mhm.
nothing like that, right, Dan? When you get the kudos, the email or the text or something, Chief, thank you, man. I'm heading out here in a few minutes to go to talk at the Air Force Academy to a bunch of
Okay.
firsties who are about to become lieutenants in about 6 weeks, and
Nice.
to tell them about what it's like out here, and I always tell them the coolest part about leading is that I call it feedback. I can't stand that word, but when you get the kudos back, thanks because you made a difference. There's
Right.
nothing like it. There's nothing like it, and that's totally air power. But we, especially as chiefs, Dan, I think in particular with lieutenants, particular lieutenants, anybody, but sometimes we got to go find them.
Of course.
We think that you made chief, you got your office finally, you got the
Parking
parking
spot.
space, yeah.
Yeah.
So and you expect people to come seek you out. Well, some will, but that's not it, man. You got to
Right.
be out there. I don't know that we've ever argued about this, but a lot of people say that leaders lead from the front. No, they don't. Effective leaders lead from the center. They're not the center, but they lead in the center because they're around everything, listening, paying
Right.
attention, helping, and doing what they need to do to help the team. But like I
Sure.
say, I always, and you know that I've always said, uh, in particular to senior NCOs, take that new lieutenant under your wing and teach
Hmm.
him or her how to be a great general, because one day they may be a general. And based on how you treat them, I think tomorrow I'm supposed to mentor or coach a brand new lieutenant. She just graduated. Same thing. Chief, I
Excellent.
graduated. I'm a
See?
lieutenant. I'm in charge. I have no idea what I'm doing. So So, and that shouldn't happen. I don't know more than that. I haven't met her yet, but that shouldn't happen. We got people, NCOs, enlisted people that should take her under their wing and say, "Ma'am, do this. Do not read the other book, and
Yeah,
go that way, and you'll be
it's a
okay."
great read. It
Yes.
is.
So, but anyway, what? And do you agree with that?
No, I do, and actually, I don't think I've ever heard you say we lead from the center. But as you were talking about it, it makes so much sense. It's almost as if there's downward leadership, but there's also upward leadership, but side to side, lateral, you name it. Again, I've never heard that term, but I found it very interesting is how you said that because we do know and are connected with so many different people and so many different organizations, but part of that is using that right to your benefit or the benefit of your people. It's kind of like some of the examples, your war stories in the book, and you knew who to contact. You didn't necessarily know how to fix the issue, but you know who to contact. And actually, I'm still doing that now under Operation Warfighter, taking care of service members, any branch, which is great, going through a medical board or in wounded warrior programs, and they're looking for some type of internship, right? So my network that I built here, especially in Colorado, I tap into that. I get people placed. I ended up at the staff agencies, and I've had soldiers actually intern over at the Air Force installation under the Comptroller Squadron, which was really cool because it's something unique. But I'm still utilizing and growing that network that we learned how to do while we were still serving in the Air Force.
And I think in the book, Dan, and I've written a couple of them, but I mentioned that it's not about knowing everything; it's about knowing everyone.
Yes.
Because that's how we did. Again, this is my perspective, my experience. There were plenty of times when you called someone. A quick story. I'll quit
Mm-hmm.
sharing stories with you soon.
I
But I'm
love them.
sitting in my office at the Ramstein, in those two buildings. Family support and
Mm-hmm.
the hospital. Some of the hospital stuff was next door,
Right.
and it's around, I don't know, 7:30, 8:30 at night. I'm about ready to go finish the day because I used to work half days, the first 12 hours, and
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I'm and just before I leave, the phone call rings, and I answer it, and this young lady says, "Chief, is this Chief Vasquez?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" She says, "I need a Coke machine." Huh? Do you know who? I have no idea why you're calling me. Well, this
Right.
is Chief Vasquez in Family Support. Yeah. Well, I work next door in the Golden Flow, the pee thing where you have to pee and all that stuff. And I need something to get people, give them some fluids so that they can pee. And AFES won't get me a Coke machine. I said, okay, hold on a second, but I'll make some phone calls in the morning and I'll get back to you. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So next morning I do. I get a hold of the AFES and I tell them what's going on. And
Yeah.
I don't know, a couple hours later, she calls me back and she says, Chief, I got my Coke machine. Great. you know,
I love it.
so, and I think, and again, I try to be humble. I'm not the best, but I knew a lot of people who were the best. And a lot
Mhm.
of times it is what you just said, having those connections where you can call someone, especially out of the blue, totally
Right.
out of the box to help you. And and that's what it takes. I didn't do it. They did it for her, but I knew to call and to at least start the conversation. So, and I know you've done it a couple of times.
Exactly. And that's not, it's funny because that wasn't in your day to day job, right? It's about the people and so on and so forth. But you were probably like, how do I make this work? I think that's one of the key traits that sometimes we take for granted with Chiefs is we're always thinking, okay, there's got to be a solution to this. How do I get there? For you, is picking up the phone, knowing the right person to call. I've never been asked for a Coke machine, soda machine, but you really probably made that unit in that area, you boosted morale in the sense that they felt like they could do their job better and take care of the folks that were coming in for your analysis.
Yeah,
Small things, big impact, though, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And the other part of it, I think, that you were talking about being humble, uh,
Mhm.
not to the point that you lose your ego. people argue with me, especially at the academy, because I was there for 19 years. You were, giving them a big head and making their egos big. I said, no, 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 wait a minute. There's a difference between a strong ego and a big ego. A big ego are those the what do they call them? The ring knockers that walk in telling you, "Hey, I'm a academy grad and I know everything," and all that
Right,
kind of crap. And you know what we do to those youngsters, particularly as chiefs. But the strong ego is that I got to do what I got to do.
right.
You can't hesitate. I got to do what I got to do. And I think with a chief, you got to do what you got to do. And I don't remember you being a real introvert, Dan, but maybe you
No,
had more of those tendencies. But every time, in the time that we've known, you did what you had to do. There were times
that's
when you had to walk into that classroom and tell people to shut up, and you did. And otherwise you would have sat back there and let things go badly or bad. But anyway, I think isn't that a good trademark for a chief? You can. I'm not. What's the airman's creed? I will never leave an airman behind.
we'll
You're
never
at
leave
the end.
them behind.
Yeah, I
Yes,
ain't gonna leave anybody behind. I don't care what it is or who it is.
correct.
You're an American. I'm gonna take care of you, uh, even beyond Americans. But um,
Sure.
but you got to have that strong ego, not the big ego, but the strong ego.
And that's part of kind of what I alluded to earlier is that it had to develop in me. My personality, I am an extrovert, but as a kid, Pisces are shy people to begin with. But once I realized, like, okay, my passion is people, and I like learning their stories, I had to really push myself to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, as we say, and it that made me who I am today, right? And I love to talk to people. You and I don't have to see you for months, and we can pick up right where we were, and
Mm.
that's with a lot of folks. But I'm truly interested in hearing their stories, but also, okay, where can I help? Um, the beauty of that and serving for 28 years and kind of learning those skills and helping folks, you can apply it to your family. And I took some of that and I really have, had conversations with my three kids. One's a college grad, one's in college, and then one's in high school. It's beautiful how everything you learn and kind of help folks in the military, you apply it to your family life too. And just to kind of put it out there, I know we've served long years, many hours, right? You said you did the first 12, and I get those days, but at the end of the day, what I like to tell people is my core is my party of five. There's three kids, myself and my wife. It has to start there. Faith in God, core family, and then you're so good about taking care of other folks. And it ties into what you reference in your book as well as you got to take care of yourself first. Initially, I didn't do a great job at that, and I had to learn that as well. And that was again at Ramstein with a very high ops tempo. And I'll tell you who the boss truly is, and we know this, my wife. And one day she said, I was getting home late every day. She said, Dan, we need you here too. That's all she said. Very profound, very concise statement, but I finally made a true effort to say, you know what, I need to be more present at home too.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. What's that old saying or the meme that your family will never remember how long you were at work, or well, they
Mm-hmm.
won't remember. You got to remember that they won't remember that. That's not important. What's
Right.
important is when you were there. Were you there for my? I just got back from Missouri, having gone to see one of my granddaughter's
Nice.
musicals, and what a pain in the, I mean, literally a pain in the butt sitting there for 2 hours. But I went for four shows, man. They did four shows. I went for four shows. And
Wow.
in fact, this morning I had the songs in my brain and I couldn't get rid of them. So,
You're
but that's
next.
what you
You're
do. That's
performing it next.
yeah, exactly. That's the test, right? Were you there or were you not there? There is no in
Yes.
between. Well, I got no, Dad, you were not there. So you're right. It starts with the family and yourself, as I said in the book. You got to take care of yourself because
Sure.
I do a values a program, and I ask people what's the most important thing in your life, and they'll say all kinds of things, and they kind of I almost surprise them when I say no. You're the most important thing in your life. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be there. I mean, as a medic, especially, that's what you guys do is take care of people so that they can take care of people so that they can it grows exponentially. but you got
Right.
to take care of this first. Well, Dan, I know you got to go. I got to go. I got to go find some cadets to yell at. I mean, inspire.
I
I got
love
to
it.
change my thinking here. But thank you again for being on the program, and especially for what you do. And I know you're working with, what is the program again that you're involved with?
It's called Operation Warfighter. So contractor under Defense Health Agency, but again, still serving, and it fits who I am because it keeps me connected to the military community. And I tell folks when I drive out of the gates now, it's refreshing because all I'm doing is taking care of people. I don't have all the other things that came with serving, and no regrets, but it's nice just to focus on helping them and setting them up for success.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes it all worthwhile. Sometimes it's a lot of work, sometimes it's a lot of hours, as we've done before, but
Sure.
it's all worthwhile. So, well,
Absolutely.
thank you again. Keep succeeding, man, because I add that to my resume and took care of Dan Cellabotte so that he could do this. So,
You sure
but
did.
it doesn't make me much money though. We need to work on that. Help me out, would
No,
you?
all the money goes to my wife and kids, so I can't help you out there. But
Yeah, and taxes. Well, although
yes,
that may get fixed soon, I hope. Anyway, thanks a lot, brother. God bless you, and take care of
thank
yourself.
you. God bless you too. Thank you so much.